All right, hello, and welcome to the Society of Professional Journalists webinar series. My name is Michael Sansorino, and I am SPJ's Education Manager. Today, our webinar is YouTube for Local News, which is part of our partnership with the Google News Initiative. Our goal is to present ways in which YouTube can help local journalists reach a larger audience and find new revenue streams. Before we get started, I want to remind viewers about SPJ's training program in association with the Google News Initiative. We offer free, in-person trainings to newsrooms, universities, and journalism organizations, teaching about a variety of Google tools, including YouTube. The goal is to improve the quality and reach of journalism. For more information, please visit spj.org/Google. Leading today's presentation is Deb Wenger, a 17-year broadcast veteran who now works as an assistant dean and oversees undergraduate studies in journalism at the University of Mississippi. She is joined by Shanti Alsalai, News Operations Manager and Director of Photography at KTVB, an NBC affiliate in Boise, Idaho. With all that said, I'd like to turn things over to Deb.
All right, great. Thank you very much, Michael. I'm going to start sharing my screen here and get the presentation rolling. And just kind of remind you that we are actually really willing to continue the conversation after this webinar is over. If you want to reach me, you could always tweet at dhwenger or follow up with me via email at deborah.wenger@gmail.com. I'm sure SPJ or the Google News Initiative would be delighted if there was something about this presentation that you felt was worth sharing with the world, so I've included those Twitter handles here as well. Shanti, I'm so happy to have you here today. Really looking forward to hearing what you have to tell us about 360 video and VR. He's also sharing his Twitter handle, and again, I'm sure that he would be delighted to follow up with anyone who is interested in talking more about 360 and VR. So let me go ahead and get started here, and Shanti, I'll ask you to kind of monitor the crowd for me as I can't see that portion of the screen right now. But does anyone want to take a stab at what the top video of all time is right now on YouTube? I'll give you a little bit of a hint. It's no longer Gangnam Style. Many of you probably had the pleasure of watching that video over the years. But the hint is that it is a music video. So, Shanti, anybody weighing in with their best guess on top video of all time?
Yeah, we've got Trump, Keyboard Cat, Taylor Swift. So that's what we've got so far coming in.
I like it. Nobody hit Despacito, though, which is the top video of all time, music video. Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of a challenge playing back playing back these videos in this presentation. So just take it from me. There's a scantily clad woman here, as you can see, and a heart-wrenching song to go along with it. But what this is indicative of to me is the fact that journalists often take social platforms and they adopt them and then adapt them for their own purposes. So, YouTube was originally a place where a lot of teenagers spent a lot of time sharing ridiculous videos of themselves, or we saw a lot of music videos, a lot of gamers on there, but it has certainly evolved into a source and a site for local news. And YouTube is now acknowledging that and really putting some thought into how to help news organizations leverage the power of this world's largest video platform. And so I wanted to share some numbers from YouTube with you about the potential of this platform. I'm a former TV news person myself and still teach about TV news and research TV news. So this number, reaches more 18 to 34-year-olds than any other TV network. That really spoke to me because I know how difficult it is for local news organizations to encourage young people in that 18 to 34 and younger demographic to become news consumers. And so, one of the things that we've found over the years, I think everyone in the news business would agree, is it's much easier to put content where the audience already is than to get the audience to come to where your content is located. So that seems to me to be an important number. No surprise to anyone that much of the consumption occurs on mobile devices. That's just everywhere on, nearly every bit of content that young people consume is on a mobile device. And then this number, 5 million plus hours of news video watched daily. So again, much easier to build on an audience that already exists. So there are people already interested in news content on YouTube. And now let's look at how we can put our content there and really leverage the power of the platform. So local news is growing on YouTube. Some of you may be familiar with what Fox 10 in Phoenix has been doing with YouTube over the last couple of years. I believe they are the dominant local TV news station in the US as it relates to generating YouTube views. In 2016, it was around 54 million. So a significant audience for them on their YouTube channel. And although, it's not an everyday occurrence perhaps, but certainly we do see examples of news videos generating 2 million plus views. If it's something that captures the audience's attention, the fact that this is a global platform, gives your video an opportunity to go viral. Nearly every time we talk about YouTube in a newsroom through the Google News Initiative training program, people want to know, how can I make my videos go viral? Well, to me as journalists, really what we want to do is we want to think about getting the biggest audience possible for the videos that we feel are important for people to see. There are many, many people who spend their entire careers trying to get videos to go viral. And, if there were the perfect solution out there, if someone had cracked that nut, we would be well aware of it. But what I think is probably more important for us to talk about today is how do we get the most views for the content that we're already generating or that we want to generate to grow our brand as news organizations in a fractured media universe. So I may have mentioned that the Knight Foundation sponsors research into local TV news, and a colleague of mine, Bob Papper, and a couple other researchers got together and we looked at sort of the future of news video. So where is news video going to be consumed in the future? And you can certainly read the full report on the Knight Foundation site. But what we did find is that the power of YouTube remains relatively untapped. We looked at about 700 local TV news stations that were analyzed or tracked by the platform Shareably, a media analytics company, and we analyzed to figure out who were the key players in each of the DMA categories that we selected. We certainly found that the top stations within DMA categories are quite capable of earning tens of millions of views per year. And there was a reason why the big players on YouTube were there. And the number one thing is, no surprise, to reach new audiences both within and beyond your market. So, one of the things that Autumn Hand was one of the video strategy folks at Scripps, talked about how it was sort of a revelation to their stations that got into this about how many views come to their content from well beyond their market. But those views are then calculated and added into the aggregate, which helps the station generate revenue. It's also something of a clip service to local viewers. So let's say you covered the big high school championship game. That airs for 45 seconds, a minute maybe, on your nightly newscast, and then is seldom seen again. But put it out on YouTube, let it live, let viewers who are interested in that content share it. Find those kind of audience drivers within the content you're already creating and put it out there for viewers to consume after your newscasts are over, or if they're not on your website already, maybe they'll stumble across it on YouTube. Experiment with new storytelling forms. This is where Shanti comes in. As I said, he's going to speak about VR and 360 video. There are many other sort of innovative ways in which news organizations are using YouTube, and we're going to walk through some of them. And then finally, generating revenue. You know, two of the biggest stations in the country in terms of YouTube are in Phoenix. We've got Fox 10 and ABC 15. And I'm talking to the folks at ABC 15, they're telling me it is not an insubstantial amount of revenue generated if you get up into the 30 million views range as they were a year ago. So how do we kind of look at the things that you can do on YouTube in sort of levels of engagement? The first, the easiest, is to simply identify the programming that you yourself are already creating, and take a look at what's working in terms of generating views already. You know, see what your competitors are doing that's driving traffic. You know, the Phoenix market is this perfect case study because Fox 10 was on YouTube, was garnering, you know, hundreds of thousands of views, and ABC 15 said, well, wait a second, what is it that they're doing? Can we do it too? And sure enough, they figured it out, and they're doing it almost to the level, or perhaps to the level now, of Fox 10. The little bit more challenging, but you know, if you have the resources to do it, is to use YouTube Analytics to understand better what your content is doing, what types of content work best for your market. Because like any social platform, you know, you need to understand your audience for your channel, as well as sort of understanding the social platform as a whole. And then the more difficult part is creating YouTube-only content. And so every news organization has to decide, you know, what is going to work well for you. How many resources do you have, and how can you leverage the platform in a way that works for your newsroom? For example, more and more news organizations, in particular local TV stations, are starting to use YouTube Live in conjunction with, or in some cases instead of, Facebook Live, again because of that revenue generating contribution. So here's an example, Fox 10. You see the incredible numbers here, 1.4 million plus views, covering a police chase through the city of Phoenix, using YouTube Live to cover this event. And of course, you know, once that video has, the live portion has concluded, you know, it lives on and continues to generate views. ABC 15, you know, again, using YouTube Live, but this time basically passing through the ABC network live feed of this event in Atlanta. So this is a Phoenix station capitalizing on and making, you know, growing audience, making money, and interacting with their audience with content that is available to them, but that took little to nothing more than essentially passing through that signal. And I think what's really key here is, you know, 77,000 views is not shabby for sure, but notice that the station received over 850 comments on the video over the weeks that it was still resonating with the audience. So again, as we're looking to make social platforms more engaging for our audience, to use it as a place of conversation and discussion, this kind of thing is working well. So, you know, more than anything, I see stations and news organizations not making or putting enough effort towards making the videos that they're already posting more discoverable. And so all of that boils down to essentially search engine optimization. And this is why it's so important. If you have a teenager, or you know anyone who's a big YouTube consumer, you know how important YouTube related is to their consumption habit. So my son watches baseball highlights. He doesn't just watch one baseball highlight, he watches an hour's worth of baseball highlights. And they just keep feeding him those videos to him. So he goes down this rabbit hole on YouTube related where he watches one and then another pops up and another. And that's what you want to think about in terms of getting your content in front of more audience. So search engine optimization. One of the things that many news organizations fail to do is to write long, detailed descriptions of the videos that they've posted. Can't tell you how many times I go to a site and I see on someone's YouTube channel, a headline and maybe one line, maybe no line, maybe a link back to the story on the station's website or the newsroom's website. But really what you're trying to do is get those keywords, just like you do when you're doing SEO on any kind of digital content. You need to get them into the headline and you need to get them into the description. So, in this case, this was a project that a newspaper in Little Rock, Arkansas was working on. They were doing massive coverage of signing day. All the top high school athletes were, going to the teams, the college teams that had signed them. And this could have been great content. Sports is a big driver of content on YouTube. But take a look at this. First of all, not a mention of signing day in either the headline or the actual description. And look at the category, news and politics. So those categories are important. Don't just upload and default to the standard blogs and people. Look at the choices available to you and make a decision based on where you think this video is going to find its audience. Curate your playlists. As some of you may remember, when Facebook Live came on the scene a couple years ago, they were really promoting Facebook Live. The algorithm, if you were going live, you were immediately getting views because it was showing up in more and more people's feeds. YouTube gives a little bit of a bump to playlists. So, create playlists around videos that you see resonating with your audience. Here's an example from that newspaper in Little Rock where they saw people were watching their police videos. They were getting body cam videos and, store security videos and things, and they put them all together into a playlist and they're watching those views increase. Add a subscribe button at the end of your videos because subscribers, videos that are posted on channels with more subscribers get a little bit of edge from YouTube in terms of helping the algorithm helping build audience. Don't be afraid to ask for subscriptions or to ask for likes. You can overdo it, but just like in any social platform, there may be times when that's appropriate. And then select your thumbnails wisely. Don't just use the default image that YouTube will upload for you. Take a look at your options. Consider a custom image that you upload to be that thumbnail. All of these things make a difference. So here's a case in point. A colleague of mine in the Google News Initiative, Dan Petty, shared this with me yesterday. So here's an example. Orange County Register got some really compelling video from a store cam basically showing an off-duty officer pulling a gun on a man at a gas station. Not shabby, 18,000 plus views there. But later in the day, they got an interview with the people involved, and they changed the headline to include the fact that this guy was mistakenly suspected of stealing Mentos. So it went from being just another random, gun at a gas station story to being a story about a guy basically mistakenly trying to sell Mentos. Those were the keywords resonating. They wrote a longer description here to really lay out the story, and look at these views now. 986,000 plus views, from 18,000 to close to 1 million. So taking those few minutes to add those optimization techniques and to apply those techniques can really make a difference in the impact of the videos that you're producing. So, the next step and the most difficult part is in innovation. And so glad Shanti's here with you, because I think one of the most innovative thing that I see happening on YouTube as it relates to local news is the production of 360 and VR content. So Shanti's at KTVV in Boise, which I think might be one of the biggest local news players in this space. And YouTube is a really important platform for this kind of work. They say that they house the largest library in the world. Their virtual reality channel has about 3 million subscribers. So, this is a really innovative and unique way to engage on YouTube at a higher level. So Shanti, I took a screen grab here of one of the very first 360 videos you ever produced. a story literally about a goose that fell in love with a car.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you got into producing 360 content and where you've taken it since then?
Yeah, well, thanks. We started, we had some leftover capital, and my GM, or current GM, but then news director said, let's get a 360 camera because we had been at a meeting to learn about 360. And so we just got one without really having a plan for it. And we happened to get a viewer comment to one of our morning anchors about a goose that just follows this car. And I don't mean just follows right alongside it. And when everywhere she goes, she couldn't even return a movie because this goose was putting other people in jeopardy. So we went out there and we decided to make a 360 story out of it, and we got lucky because it was the perfect use of it. We had the camera hanging out the window, we had a camera stuck on the car door, and it really was kind of a special story because of that. And so that's how we got into it. And having kind of the success of that story, it got picked up by Gizmodo from our YouTube page. And at the time, we only had about 100 subscribers. And Gizmodo picked it up, and so it kind of went, baby viral. We ended up getting 60,000 some likes on it. But it allowed us to have a longer runway to get more gear and to get more opportunities to tell more 360 stories.
And so, you talked a little bit about you stuck a camera on the outside of the car, you had one on top of the car. Can you talk a little bit about the gear that you have used to create these videos?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, here in the notes, I'll go ahead and there we go. I've pasted, if you can see that, just a whole list of everything I use every time I go out to shoot. Now this has grown since this first shot with the goose. With the goose, I was just using my GoPro Omni, which is this guy. It's 6 GoPros that are all put in an array on a rig, and so it's grown. And now I have a couple of audio recorders that have ambisonic microphones on them to help catch audio spatially in a 360 sphere, as well as the video, and match those up. I have a Nikon Key Mission, which is just a small little kind of a waterproof GoPro type. It only has 2 lenses on it, and that's it's waterproof, and so you can do a little bit more with it than the Omni. And then after that, I just have a light stand that I put it all on, and then just use GoPro clamps and fasteners to put it on the side of the car door. We've just recently went to Hell's Canyon, this river that's in a gorge that's deeper than Grand Canyon, and we used the Nikon just clamped to the front of the boat to get these really cool water shots. And that's the gear that I'm using right now.
And so, I know that you've continued. This was just the first of multiple videos that you and your station have produced. What would you say, is sort of the rationale behind why you're going sort of all in on this type of experience?
Well, I think we at KTVB, so the reason we got into 360 wasn't because of the gimmick of 360, where, if you go to YouTube, you see a lot of different stories where they say, hey, check out this 360 view of whatever. And it's just an experience to them, and they just have one shot that stays up for a full 2 minutes. And you can pan around, but then you get bored pretty quickly. Our entire program started with the premise that we were going to apply the same storytelling techniques that we do with our Idaho Life features and on a daily basis, and to apply those on a day with our 360 content using the new technology. And so for us, we're all in because it helps us to continue telling stories, but then using new technologies to tell stories in a different way. And so it's great that we have a management team that supports it and is all in on it as well. So they give us the leeway to find the right stories, because we're always looking for what makes a great 360 story every time we go out.
And you're in the middle of a project right now, right? Maybe a week's worth of 360 videos, or?
Yep. As a matter of fact, we started yesterday. We went out to do a new franchise. And if you go to our YouTube page, you'll see we have an Idaho Life playlist, and we have an Exploring Idaho playlist, and a KTVB News playlist. And it's because we also agree with the playlist model there. So people can go and look through the playlist and then just kind of get sucked into watching one video after the next. But we're pulling out old franchises that we used to do back in the 80s, and one of them was Exploring Idaho. So what we did is we went to Hell's Canyon, that river, and we went that river in the gorge, and we went on a jet boat ride. Today we're going to be showing our paragliding piece up in Horseshoe Bend, a town 20 minutes north of here, where they just jump off of a side of a hill with paragliding. We go to a ghost town down south of Idaho where it was an old mining town from the late 1800s, and now people still live there, but it's a ghost town. You can't build any new houses. And then finally we end with the City of Rocks, where we go and we climb Elephant Rock, which is about a 900-foot climb, and we do it all with the 360. And also traditionally on air, we shot that in parallel. And so that's being rolled out once a day for this entire week.
And so in general, are you doing sort of a standard TV version of the 360 stories that you're doing as well, so you get sort of double bang for the buck?
No, this time we are, because it was just it was too inefficient to try to go out with the same reporter, to the same location twice. But typically our thought process is to, when we go out with the 360, we're doing that specifically as a 360 online only story. The Goose happened to be one where that's how we introduced it to our viewers, is we shot the first half of that story traditionally and aired it at our 10 o'clock show. And then we said, for the rest of the story, you got to go to our YouTube page. And then we had that story available for them to watch. But since then, we've done goat yoga. We did an eclipse story. We did Nutcracker, the big ballet here in Ballet, Idaho. And we've done a couple of these different 360 stories that were only for 360. So if you wanted to see them, you had to go to our YouTube page.
And so do you think you're reaching new audiences through this technique?
Definitely. One of the approaches that we have, and that Tegna has, our parent company, is to spike your channel so that people have to come to see either a viral or a really cool, interesting story, so that then they can sample the rest of what you have. And the 360 content seems to do that. In whatever way, it gets more hits, more likes, more clicks than any of our other content. And so if it brings in, like the story we posted yesterday already has about 1,000 views. So that's 1,000 people. We only have 770 subscribers. So that's people are coming to sample us. And so we find that this content is generating people coming to our YouTube page so that they can see what we're all about in other playlists and other videos as well.
Terrific. And any sort of, quick advice for someone who's considering doing something like this on their own channel? Anything, any mistakes you could help them avoid, or is that a longer conversation they need to have with you?
I could spend all day talking about mistakes that I've made with 360. I have stayed up late at night editing through the night because I forgot to render video in the wrong format and blah blah blah. My advice is for people to, you don't have to necessarily get into one of these, complicated rigs, because then when it gets to stitching the video, it can get pretty tedious, and you're starting to deal with huge file sizes. A 9-minute interview is like 50 gigs, right? And
Wow.
so you start to move that kind of content around, and it can get to be cumbersome, and it can be really daunting. So, you could even, like, I shot almost my entire Hell's Canyon story with just this guy, and you can start there and get in there. I use Adobe Premiere Pro to edit because it has a nice VR component to it, and just try it and try to, not just put it on on a light post and just leave it there for 2 minutes and call that the video. Try to edit something. Try to have some kind of a context to your video. That is what our reporters provide, so that it tells a story and doesn't let the 360 be the gimmick, but you let it be kind of the canvas for you to tell the story better.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And of course, if anyone has questions, we're going to have some time here at the end to, take a deeper dive into this topic if you have some more burning questions. So other ways which news organizations are innovating on YouTube in particular. Here's an example. KQED public television in the San Francisco Bay Area, actually leveraging the power of user-generated content with YouTube. So for one of their campaigns, they actually asked viewers to send them videos of why they love the places they love within the Bay Area, whether that's a neighborhood that they love or a scene that they love, something that they think people should know about the Bay Area. And I can see a lot of applications for that. So even though that would be YouTube only content, by involving the audience, by using your own audience members to contribute the content, that sort of lowers the bar, well, relatively significantly from producing 360 video, but it makes it a little bit more manageable for you to do something special on YouTube that might also engage the audience and provide some high interest content. Another example of how news organizations are innovating through YouTube, the NPR affiliate in New York, WNYC, has had an ongoing, I guess you would call it an episodic series called Being 12, in which they literally interview 12-year-olds on topics about, their views on the world. And they have had some of their most popular videos generated through this series. Now, that's of course a time commitment, and that's something that your news organization has to decide. Do you have the time? Do you have the resources to be able to pull off and sustain an ongoing feature like this? And the answer may or may not be yes. So episodic content is another way that news organizations are building an audience if they find that right subject matter. We talk sometimes about the power of raw video on YouTube and or simply video that doesn't look just like a regular TV story. So at King 5 in Seattle, they will produce content with kind of that Vice News feel to it, and actually have a conversation with the audience. So the reporter directly addresses the audience with the story, and the editing is much more feels much more amateurish. Obviously it is not. It's created by professionals, but with the reporter addressing the camera, they don't worry about jump cuts. They're fine with shaky video. And if we had been able to solve our own technical problem here, I would let you listen to this video, but for now all you can do is you can just see a little bit of it. It jumps right in. It uses the full screen graphics that you'll see in social video generally. Watch this stand-up. It's one series of jump cuts with him again directly addressing the audience. Not every shot is rock steady and on a tripod. So all of those things give it this sense of kind of raw, like you're just joining him along for the ride on this topic. And as you saw there, we're talking, double check the number here, almost 1.4 million views. Very well could be over that at this point. So, this takes the right personality. So you have to have someone on your staff that can pull off a story like this. They happen to have one. But again, this is a little bit higher level, a little bit bigger commitment to producing YouTube only content than some newsrooms may be able to handle. So what we talk about oftentimes is the idea of sustainability. You don't want to launch a big project and then do nothing with it. So if you're going to go all in on a particular subject, whether that's 360 or it's episodic content or something like this, Fox 5 in Atlanta does have an I-team. So when they produce their content for the newscast, they're also posting it on YouTube. So there's not that level of difficulty in terms of sustaining this because it's something that they're already working on and doing. If they begin to do special I-team investigations for YouTube only, that's certainly another matter. So there's nothing wrong with taking a franchise that maybe you already produce and just simply republishing that on YouTube. Or as Shanti was talking about, Occasionally, it might make sense to do a version for the air and then a version for YouTube, depending on if you can differentiate the content, present it in a little different way. Here's an example of a snow challenges drivers in Little Rock, Arkansas. So more than 1 million views. This video is still getting views 7 years after it's published. So don't be afraid to just go to your YouTube channel and sort your videos by most popular and take a look at videos that you know are driving audience, are high interest videos, and think about, can I make more of them? So in fact, this newspaper took this video, put it in a playlist with other videos of snow and snow-related topics, and this video alone earned about 13,000 more views in like the first month that it was posted in this playlist. So again, thinking about how to optimize the content that's already there. And certainly I would hope that if it snows again in Little Rock, that they'll be out there reshooting a version of this story, making more of the things that the audience has already said they're interested in. Sports content is one that resonates on YouTube. So, and again, there are so many sources of this video out there. And if you have, obviously, you want to use it ethically and legally, but if you have access to sources of video and your audience is coming to you for it, use the network's feed. Use the video that you get from a sister station, and create your video playlists around topics that resonate. So, there's certainly no shame with taking something that's working well and basically doing more of it. If you want to consider sort of playing around with YouTube in the way that KTVB and Shanti's crew has, think about your market. More than anything, what I hear from digital content producers is, what works in Boise is, probably not going to work in Nashville. Maybe some will, maybe some won't. But you know your market better than anyone else. So how can you use the things that you know about your market and get inspired about possible uses of YouTube? So here is what I think is an awesome example. AL.com in Alabama certainly knows that anything Alabama football is going to be a winner. So they had an idea of, big championship game. Let's set up cameras in a bunch of viewing locations where people are watching this. So this video was nothing more than a camera set up in a series of bars and other locations around Birmingham that showed people watching the Alabama championship game, 2017. At this point, it's over 500,000 views. And this is what we're talking about. It is not high production. I wish you could hear these wacky people and their crazy cheers. But this is what this video is. In terms of effort, this is pretty low-hanging fruit. But this is the kind of content that they knew would work in their market. So, that's what we're talking about, is looking for inspiration within your own newsroom and talking to the people that know your market best, which is your colleagues. If you want to try to see if you can't get in on a topic or subject area that's already resonating on YouTube, if you log onto your YouTube page, you'll see on the left-hand side, you have an option to click on the little tab that says trending. So I took the screen grab last night. And, it's always, quite often there's a bunch of junk. I shouldn't be judgmental, right? There are a bunch of videos up there that most news organizations probably wouldn't pursue. But you look here is that some of the top videos last night were related to the volcano. Now, you probably live nowhere near a volcano, but this content is resonating with people. They are going to look at this impressive video. So does your local university have a geologist who could talk about this? It gives you an opportunity to take some of that amazing footage and put it together with a local angle. Are there travel agents? I don't know if there are even travel agents anymore, but are there folks planning honeymoons to Hawaii that are rethinking it. Again, looking for opportunities to use video and to get in on a trend. There's a term called newsjacking. So this would be an example of newsjacking. You know that this is a content that's resonating. We're going to do a version of this story because we know people are interested in it. And then, you can actually use Google Trends, another Google News Initiative tool, to search in your geographic area, assuming it's large enough, to determine what are the most common YouTube searches for your geographic area. Even though this has been a trend on YouTube now for, I want to say, 2 years or so, the slime, how to make slime search continues to be one of the top searches. So, looking at what are the things that people are already looking for in your market on YouTube and adding a video along that topic into the mix. So again, this is if you're looking for a way to create content that you want to experiment with, see whether or not it will resonate based on what you know about your audience or what you know about the YouTube audience. But for the most part, my big recommendation is optimize the content that you're already producing, because you're producing it for a reason, because you feel it's important. You're journalists and you want to get that information out. So that's where I think the bulk of your effort should be made. So I'm going to bump out of this presentation right now and just see if there are any questions that we might deal with before I do the wrap up with some resources for you. So Michael and Shanti, I hope you've been tracking this, because obviously I haven't. Are there any other questions out there?
There were some questions right off the bat about from Jennifer DeSeo, who was wondering about how to keep non-local viewers from commenting, i.e. trolling.
Oh, yeah. So there is in beta right now, and I will try to, if you want to toss your email address, if you don't mind, or get in touch with me at deborah.wenger@gmail. There is a kind of auto moderation tool that YouTube has in beta right now. I'm not sure if they're looking for partners to continue to test it, or if they're just going to be rolling it out very soon. But they are addressing that issue, and I'd be happy to update you with that if you can get in touch. Let's see, what else is out there? What resources are available to define a marketplace in YouTube? A little bit more information about that. Is there coaching on the right steps to market into YouTube so we do not waste resources? So I guess that you are asking about, are you doing like branded content? Is that what you're looking for? Okay, branded content. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point you to the YouTube Creator Academy. There's a great sort of tutorial there is specifically for people who are going to be creating branded content on YouTube.
And we had a question earlier about launching a YouTube channel and wondering what the best course of action is in terms of the first videos you post there. Is it full production, quick videos? Is it a mix of both? What typically works?
So if you're just launching your YouTube channel, I would go with the content you already have available. If you have not knowing the situation, but if you've already produced content, I would just start with that, because the first thing you want to do is you want to get it up and running. Shanti, I saw you nodding your head there. Do you have some other thoughts about that?
Yeah, just for us, we're getting into the YouTube as well. little bit later than some others, even in our company. But what we started to do was to realize that we've already got stuff in house, and that we are able to easily repurpose that for a new.
And then, when you can look at your own analytics. YouTube does provide analytics for you. You can see what's working. You can say, okay, we're noticing that, sports video is a real winner for us. Even if it's a relatively small, it outperforms the other videos that we're seeing there. Well, let's get more of that content out there. Look at your competitors. Who would you consider your competition, and what are they doing that's generating views? That's where I would start. Mark Casey asked, what's the business model? There is a revenue share. Whether or not I would call that equitable to the provider. Again, I think that gets into, if it's content you're already producing, it doesn't take a ton of effort to repost it to YouTube, and you can generate revenue off of the video that's posted to YouTube. But if you are going to be a YouTube only platform, at that point, then, I think that you would have a more challenging time being able to define it as equitable based on how much effort you have to put into the production of that video. So if you're simply sharing video you're already producing, I do think there's a revenue benefit, and the stations I've talked to agree with that. If you're producing solely for YouTube because that's your only distribution platform, then those economics may become a little bit dicier. All right, so let me share a few of the resources here. And if anybody has a particular question, I'll hunt down some answers for you, offline here as we wrap up. So let me just bump back into my screen so that I can share some of these websites with you that I think you will find helpful. So there is a creator channel or portion of your YouTube channel. Some of you may have already checked it out, but it does allow you to do some things that show your audience that you appreciate them, that you're listening to them, that you're engaging with them. So one of the very easy things to do is to find a video that has a comment that you think sets the right tone for the video that you are sharing, and pin that comment to the top. Go ahead and add in a heart on comments that you think are, you just basically click a button to show some love to the folks who took the time to comment. Go in and add to the conversation. Put in a comment yourself, or add a link to additional resources. Those are all ways in which you as a creator can help leverage that social aspect of this social platform. This is the website that I was referring to earlier, creatoracademy.youtube.com. So if you're interested in particular about how to create video that works well for marketing a brand or a product, if you're going to start to produce custom videos for clients, let's say, the Creator Academy is going to offer a treasure trove of information for you, and share the experiences of others. So we did a search here because this is all about news content, where we search Creator Academy for news, and you can see the top 3 results here. One of them is success stories. So other about case studies from successful creators. So we're looking for content around marketing. Obviously, you're going to change that search. But this is a great place for you to get a sense of how news organizations, marketers, and others are using YouTube. Anybody who creates content for YouTube can learn something from this site. If you want to sort of reinforce some of what we've talked about today for your own newsroom, g.co/news training is a great resource for you as well. So there's an entire course built around YouTube, about 9 lessons included, would take you about an hour and a half to complete it. And you can also then go into the tools area of the training site, and again, a little different take on it. Walk yourself through some of the things we just talked about today and reinforce them if you want others within your newsroom to be aware of this. Kevin Clay from ABC 15, I thought really hit the nail on the head here with this quote regarding YouTube. And, you know, as every news organization is looking for ways to survive in a fractured media universe, those who are producing video can't really afford to overlook what is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, platforms in the world for video news consumption. And so what we need to do is we need more study of this. We need more best practices to develop so that we can share content and build our brands well into the future. As you know, Michael was saying, this training is all part and parcel of the Society of Professional Journalists in association with the Google News Initiative. And I would encourage you, when you look at the SPJ website, to take a look at the Google News Initiative training page, because we can bring training on YouTube and Google Trends and Fusion Tables and, you know, about a half dozen more workshops directly to newsrooms. If you can get 25 people together in your newsroom, we can come and do customized training for you around those topics. It is sponsored through a grant from Google, and so, you know, it's no cost to you. We've got some fabulous trainers available to do these workshops, and you know, even if you want another round of YouTube so that more people can hear it in your newsroom, you know, we would be happy to do that for you. So Michael, with that, I know you had a couple things that you wanted to say, and as I said earlier, both Shanti and I are happy to...
Yeah, I just first thank you to you, Deb and Shanti, for your time today. We really appreciate it. We will post a replay of this webinar on spj.org in the next few days. So if there are things you want to rewatch, or even if you want to share with colleagues or friends, keep an eye out there, as we'll post that here soon. And one more reminder, I know Deb just went over it, but a lot of newsrooms, a lot of journalists are trying to figure out how can we be more digitally savvy, how can we afford training to do so. Through this grant from the Google News Initiative, this association we have, you know, we can offer these free in-person trainings on a variety of subjects. So I highly recommend you visit spj.org/Google and see how we can help you in that regard. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. We hope you'll join us for future SPJ webinars. Keep an eye out if you're a member in your leads email, and you know, also just keep an eye out for spj.org/webinars, where we'll post these replays.